thank you for joining us today. For kind of an introduction, I work with tribal organizations, specifically going through that whole software evaluation process. So we can definitely be stepping you through that as we move forward and you need more further information. Now Sarah comes to the table. She is our technology evangelist, and we like to refer to her as, she just has a lot of acronyms and a lot of accolades, and we can't put those all behind her title, so we sum it up as our technology evangelist. But most recently, she was recognized by Microsoft for her most valuable professional recognition that comes with, you know, a select few that actually are recognized that way. And she acquired that because of her passion for the technology, but moreover, her ability to share her knowledge with the community and people at large. So we welcome having her today. She'll be spending some good time sharing that passion with us. So as Joanne had mentioned in opening up the GoToWebinar panel, we definitely would love to engage with you. If you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and click the raise your hand, and we'll get an opportunity to interrupt Sarah for a moment and get your question answered. But however, I will also be responding to questions in the chat box real time. So definitely use the chat box if you'd like to have questions answered throughout the demonstration. Okay. All right, next slide, Sarah. Okay, and here's just a brief overview. And again, I know I've talked to a lot of you already about RTIT, but we are a technology firm that is an Alaska Native-owned company. We serve Alaska Native organizations and tribal organizations all over the country. I like to say we have our clients at the most northern parts of Alaska and all the way down to Florida. So we do strive to capitalize on our experience with Microsoft solutions by helping tribes simplify technology. As you will see today, that the Tribal Platforms Enrollment Solution that is based on Microsoft Dynamics 365 has a familiar look and feel to other Microsoft products that you use each day, such as Excel and Windows in and of itself. So today we're going to really take a look at how to simplify what you do using the latest technology. And also, our services encompass that full life cycle of an implementation. So it's not that you get the software and you're on your own, good luck. We do go through that whole process with you through implementation, training, ongoing support, and work closely with you through that whole process. All right, Sarah, next slide. Okay. So just to note, this is a series of 3 webcasts, and I'll highlight at the end of this webcast a little bit more about what the other 2 sessions are going to entail. But this is our first webcast for the series, so we welcome you to that. Let's go ahead, the next slide. Okay. And just some things that I'd like to highlight in setting the foundation for the webcast today. As I already mentioned, Tribal Platforms Enrollment does provide efficiency through a familiar user experience and interface that you're already familiar with. In working with tribal organizations, I most often hear that there are issues in being able to analyze data, report on that data, get the information you need. So today, Sarah will be highlighting some of that functionality and the ability to, as you go through your processes, to be able to see the data real time easily. And also, Microsoft strives to stay on the leading edge of technology, which provides our tribal clients the ability to continually keep pace with the latest technology and functionality. And with that in mind, today Sarah is going to take us through what we refer to as a day in the life of an enrollment person. So we're going to kind of step through that. Again, feel free to ask questions, raise your hand, or chat as we go through. Noting that this is just a high-level overview, we will take some time with each one of you and going through a more personalized demo, but this should give you a good foundation as to how well this solution works for tribal organizations. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and thank you all very much for your time today. We appreciate it. We know you're very busy people, and we appreciate you giving us a portion of your day. As Lynn mentioned, my name is Sarah Jelinek. I'm a technology evangelist here at RTIT. And as I go through the presentation today, as I mentioned, we'll be going through kind of a day in the life of an enrollment specialist. And as you go through, please feel free to put questions in there. We've got a great team of people to help answer those for you. And as I go through, if there's things that you have questions on, please let us know at that time. We definitely want to get them answered within the context of what we're covering. I'll try not to be so excited and speak very fast today, so you have the capability to absorb what we're going to be demonstrating today. So as Lynn mentioned, Tribal Platforms Enrollment is built on Microsoft Dynamics 365. And when you first log into the application, we're going to see an interface that looks a lot similar to some of the other Microsoft applications, as Lynn had mentioned. We have the capability to access different areas within the system, including an analytics area like we see here with our dashboards, be able to look at lists of records and perform a lot of the actions that are pretty comfortable for an end user that's worked with any Microsoft technology. Now, as an enrollment user, one of the first things I do when I log in is I see a dashboard, and I can see what's happening within my enrollment system at a high level with my tribal enrollment dashboard. I can see my information in multiple formats. I have the capability to see that in a chart view, looking at my members of the tribe that are living. I can break that information out by those members, showing by their blood quantum. How many people have 100% of my total BQ blood quantum. I can look at this information. I can break out my contacts by age group, who are adults, who are seniors. And for some other actions I can take a look at are my lists of records. I can see at a high level my members of the tribe living by enrollment date, show me those, sorting that information accordingly. Maybe I want to see those that have pending membership status changes. These dashboards are available as part of Tribal Platforms Enrollment and can be used, but more importantly, can also be adapted to what you need to see when you first log into the system. Users will have the capability to switch this to dashboards that work for them. If they want to look at information regarding profile details, they can actually look at those details. They can click in some of these charts and drill into this information. So if I'm looking at the male members of the tribe, if I want to look at a list of those members, I can actually expand and find out what data is building this chart, the capability to drill down and look at all sorts of wonderful information in here. But as an enrollment user, some of the things I might need to do are to handle any type of inquiry or request from my tribal members to verify some information, or for other people in the department to verify an address, perhaps perform some quick updates to address records, or look at some of the other demographic information that I have. Now, as an enrollment user, I can simply navigate through different areas of the application very easily using the navigation across the top of the screen. At any time, I can see where I'm at in the system with this navigation pane giving me kind of a breadcrumb trail, letting me know where I'm at. In this example, I want to go to Tribal Platforms, and I want to look at our contact records and be able to look for a particular tribal member. Now, when I choose contacts, notice what happens on my navigation pane. I know exactly where I am at in the system. I know I'm looking at Tribal Platforms. I'm looking at a list of contacts. Now, with this system, we have different views of your information for you to use that best suits your role. For example, as an enrollment user, I might find it beneficial for me to see an overall list of my living tribal members, so I can quickly find their information. I also have different views that are available to me in case I want to look at other records. For example, we can record not just tribal members in the system, but we can also record non-tribal members. So for example, if I want to look at active contacts, those that might be my tribal members, and other people that we've entered in the system. Maybe they're people that are in the same household as a tribal member. They might be an emergency contact. They might be a spouse or a relative that we want to put their information in here. We're able to see our data in different views. Now, these views are available out of the box, but you have the capability to create and customize your own information. Some views that are very helpful for you to begin with are ones that we just looked at, the members of the tribe living, but maybe I want to look at all my tribal members and see a list of all those member details. I can easily switch between these different lists very easily. If I wanted to look at those that have passed on, I can change my view to members of the tribe deceased and see that appropriate information. Now, where tribal platforms enrollment really helps with your membership management is the capability to use different views for looking at your information. Now, a lot of times, if you want to see your information in different formats, you're challenged with sometimes having a custom report be created, or have to export the information to Excel and kind of make your own view or list of records and manipulate your data. Within Dynamics 365, it's very easy for us to take this data and create your own view. There's a lot of different ways that you can try find information that's important to you. You have the capability to filter. If you want to filter this list, just like you would do a filter in Microsoft Excel, you could easily do that. This will add drop downs next to every column where I can filter perhaps by a specific tribe. Maybe I want to look for those that are in Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. I can look for just those records and just have that appear in my list. And I can easily do filtering within the system like that. Now, what's really helpful about this is if you're very comfortable doing this type of capability in Microsoft Excel, you can actually take these filters that you've created and you can actually create your own view using those filters. So a user can easily go in and create their own queries, their own information very easily within Tribal Platforms Enrollment. You don't need to be a developer. You don't need to know custom code. You can do this very easily. And you can create as many views as you want to. So now this view will be available for me to use whenever I need to. Now, many times when you're actually going through and looking at your list of records, you might find it's necessary to add other fields that we're not seeing on this list right here. And users will have that capability to go into the system, decide to create a personal view, add the criteria that they want, looking at any of the fields within a contact record, and be able to do that appropriate filtering and adding the columns that they want to as well. I don't want to dive too deep into this functionality, but this capability is there and very easy to use. It's just simply like running a wizard, adding the columns that you want, choosing the order that you'd like, and then you can save your changes and make that available to other people if you want to. So as an enrollment user, many times I'm tasked with being asked to provide our list of members, being able to provide that in a shareable format like an Excel file. I can utilize the query capabilities here, take my information, I can export this information to Excel and easily share this with people that need those details. Now, one of the things that you might also be tasked with is looking at a particular member record and verifying some of their information. Tribal Platforms Enrollment has very easy capabilities for you to be able to search that information. For example, if I'm looking for a tribal member, I see that I have a pretty short list in our demo data here, but if I want to look for somebody, I have all sorts of different criteria that I can enter to try find their contact record or their member record. I can search perhaps by their social security number, their tribal ID, their full name, their birth date, the last 4 digits of their social security number. I can search by their address, their city, their state. There's all sorts of different criteria that I can use. In this example, I'm going to look for Joshua Reed, one of our tribal members. And when I look at Joshua's record, I can simply click on his name, and I'm going to be able to view a lot of details about this tribal member. And a lot of the information that you're going to see here makes sense. We've got first name and last name. We've got marital status, household information, some vital statistics. We can see some tribal information as well. But you'll also see some fields that actually have a key icon next to them as well. Now, our tribal member data is very important for us, and we have the capability to secure some of that information. So in this example, social security number, That's a personal identifiable field where we've got information we don't want everybody to know that. We have the capability to secure that information. We'll take a look at that as an example later on. But some of the information that we can see that we're tracking about our tribal member, it can be very extensive. The more that we know, the better that we're able to serve them or understand who our member base is. Now, with some of our address information as an example here, I've got an integration to Bing Maps, so I know exactly where they're located based on their address. If I needed to quickly go to their home to provide any type of assistance or service, I can see that right here on the Bing map. As I scroll down, we'll see there's a lot of other demographic information that I have besides address information. I can have physical description, other names, emergency contacts, which is a crucial record for us to keep track of who this person's emergency contacts are, employment, military service, and so forth. This form for our tribal member contains a lot of information. You don't have to use it all. You can use just what's important to you. So if you do want to track information like their employment, you can expand this area of the form and record employment information if you want to. But to keep it easy, we keep that collapsed and let you decide if you want to utilize that functionality or not. Now, in this example, I'm looking at Joshua's information because I want to verify if we have the people that are in his household listed correctly. So as I'm looking at Joshua's information here, I'm going to scroll back up to the top of the record, and you're going to see under our general information, we have a record for Joshua's household. Now, with Tribal Platforms enrollment, not only will we track the address of a household member, but we'll also track who else is in that household. In this example, let's take a look at his household and see who currently resides there. Now, Joshua Reed's household, he's actually located at 205 7th Street North. And if we were to scroll down and look at his household member information, we can see he's got his spouse, Julia Myers, that currently resides there, as well as baby Penny. I'll have the capability to manage household information for my tribal members so I know where they're located. This is going to become helpful for us whenever we have to generate address labels for mailings, or if we have to change someone's address, we want to make sure that that address gets updated for everybody. So I have the capability to view some of that household information here as well. Now, I actually want to go back to his member record because I might also want to verify something about his member profile. For example, maybe I want to look at his blood quantum percentage. We can see that in a decimal or a fraction. Maybe I want to learn a little bit more about his ancestry, his tribal lineage. We have the capability to store that information in a separate secure record that we can have the appropriate details visible just to the people that need that. So in this example, I can see information about his age. We've got a birth record that we can create. We can see his membership status, his tribal member number, his enrollment date. We'll also see the capability to look at his blood quantum. If we don't have that lineage in here, if we have to enter that information manually, we can see his tribal blood quantum fraction, the decimal. We can have the system automatically calculate this if we had configured this information for mom and dad. We would have that be able to calculate in the system for us. In this example, Joshua is just a tribal member that does not provide that lineage for us, but he did provide us the documentation that we could enter in his blood quantum details. Now let me take you to another member where we have that type of information recorded, and that's his spouse, Julia. Here we have her lineage information. And as I'm looking at this, we can see that she does have a mother and father entered in the system. Tribal Platforms enrollment, when they're configuring a tribal member's blood quantum, if we have a mother and father entered in, we can actually calculate that blood quantum automatically. It'll display that amount in a fraction as well as in a decimal for you. Now, I know a lot of tribal enrollment users probably have all those fractions that they can just shout out loud that's stored in their head, but we'll help take some of that burden away from them and let the system do that for you. And we can see what they inherit from mom and dad in this example. Now, as I'm looking at Joshua's record, we talked about looking at some of the profile information, looking at some of the demographic information. But where Tribal Platforms enrollment really helps make a difference in helping maintain your membership database is the capability for us to record some interactions with them. So as I'm looking through Joshua's record, I have the capability for me to record any type of interaction I have via phone call, an email, a task, appointment, or maybe I just want to record some notes that I've observed when I'm working with Joshua, or that he just wants us to know that we can have entered in our system. So one thing that we commonly want to record is that type of note information. Now, if I look at over on our right-hand side, we can see we've got this notes area where we go beyond a single text field for you to be able to type in essential details. We can actually have multiple notes be recorded. Now, not only will it record the details that we want by letting us put a little title in there and providing the description, but it also allows us to have a date and timestamp on that, to know who entered that note, when did they enter that note. So we can see if it's relevant. If it's a fairly recent note, we know it's probably true. If it's a little bit older, we might want to verify some things. So we have the capability to have date and timestamp information. So I'm just going to put a note in here that I verified Joshua's current address. And I'll just say that I provided this to Matt, one of our other employees here at the organization. So I can click done, and now I've got that note added. It's going to record that I recorded that information, and I did that just now. Now this is great for just adding a note, but if Joshua calls me, if somebody emails me regarding Joshua, or I actually get an email from him, I want to be able to record that information as well. There's a lot of helpful information in those details. We have this activities tab that allows me to record activities. You can see that I've got the capability right here to add a phone call. I can add a task. I can also add an appointment, an email. If I want to send an email out to somebody or to Josh, I can record some of that information here as well. You'll notice that I actually have an email from one of my coworkers today, Matt Borkowski, asking for us to do an address change for Joshua Reed. I can actually click on that email icon and I can see the contents of that message. So Matt emailed me a little bit earlier today saying Joshua's got a new address that we need to update within the system. Now Matt sent this via his email through his Outlook web access, and he tracked it regarding this contact record, so I can see that here. Now I see it's in my email mailbox. I'll be able to look at that accordingly, but I can also see that it's listed here. So if I wanted to take this information, I can just copy this. I'll close that email, and I can go back to Joshua's record and update it. But just because I received this from a coworker doesn't necessarily mean it might be right. So perhaps I want to record an activity like a phone call. And maybe I want to call Joshua and verify that the address change is correct. So I'll just say that I called Joshua, verified the address that Matt provided was correct. This was an outgoing call with Joshua. I can just simply click OK. And now I've recorded that interaction. So if someone is wondering, well, when did this address change? Did someone contact Joshua? We've got history of that right here. You'll see that I created that phone call, recorded that interaction on today's date, and I'm able to see that information. So this history that you're going to see in activities will continue to display all this important information for us. We get a good timeline of our interactions with this tribal member. Now, I've verified that his address should change. So now I'm on my tribal member record. Let's take a look at those address details. Now, with some other systems, you might have one or two address fields that you can just simply populate that information, but you really don't have a history of those changes within the system. So with tribal platforms enrollment, we know that's important for us to keep that history, to know how often did it change, when did it change, who made the change, is it a temporary address, is it their primary address, is it their mailing address? There's all sorts of questions that arise when someone needs to update their address information. Well, with enrollment, what we can do is we can click on this plus sign next to the address details. I can see that the one we have listed here is, the ones listed here are not the correct ones. So I'm just going to simply add a physical address record. The system's going to display a quick create window for me to simply specify the address type, the new address details, and if it's a primary or mailing address. So in this example, I can specify that this is going to be his home address, but I have a lot of other options, like their work address. It's a seasonal address. Maybe you have students that are attending university or college that you want to record a school address. You have many different options for recording addresses, and you can have multiple address records for a tribal member within the system. This one is Joshua's home address. I took a little shortcut here and I copied the street address. And now I'm just going to look up the city. All right, I can see that it's Wahpeton, North Dakota. When I select that, it's automatically going to select the county for me and the state and province. So we've got that information built into Tribal Platforms Enrollment with correct address details. And when it comes to the zip code, I've got a couple of different options here. I know that this one should be 58075. I can select that. And if there's an extension, I can include that. Now, this is Joshua's primary address, his home address, so I'll specify yes for this. We can have a mailing address and we can have a physical address. Many times you might have someone that has a P.O. box. You have the capability to record a mailing address if you want to as well. Well, right now I'm going to click Save to save this address. And as it's saving, one of the things we'll notice is that now we have that address history. So in this example, I changed his primary address, and we can see that it's marked as yes. His mailing address is still showing as the old address. I could probably go in and update that later. And we can see that he also has a seasonal address. But if I now look up at his member record, I can see that the address has now updated here. Now my map hasn't refreshed. I can go ahead and refresh my web page just so I can see where that address is located on the map. That will eventually update that information for me. But where Tribal Platforms Enrollment makes it easy for an enrollment user is that I've just changed Joshua's address. He has a household. He is the head of a household. And when I update his address, I'm going to go under the assumption that the people in his household will probably be moving as well. So if I look at the household record, and I can see his household is listed here, I'll see that his primary address in the household is updated. And if I now were to look at some of the other members, like Julia or their daughter, baby Penny, I can look at their member record, and I can actually see that Julia's address updated as well. So it's great because it helps close that loop when it comes to address changes. That if I want to make sure that I don't forget those household members, that they update as well. And if that's not correct, then maybe they're perhaps going to be in a different household. We can adjust that accordingly. But it helps ensure that we have data integrity when it comes to the locations of our tribal members. Now, I've actually went to Josh's household, updated that, verified it worked for everybody else. Great, let's actually go back to his contact record. So Matt had emailed me asking me to change his address for Joshua, and I did. And I can actually go back to my activities. I could see that email as we saw before. But now I want to email him back to let him know it's been completed. Tribal Platforms Enrollment has the capability, as Lynn mentioned, to integrate with the Microsoft Office or the Microsoft products that are available to us. And specifically, Microsoft Outlook is a great way for us to integrate. Right now, I currently have my email open in Outlook Web Access. And I can see the email that Matt had sent earlier today. We just saw this in our Tribal Platforms Enrollment. And I can see this message here, and I want to reply to him and let him know that the address change had been completed. So I've got Matt's email here, and I'll say that the address change has been completed. Now, one of the benefits, as we mentioned, of being able to integrate with Outlook and with their email is that I'm going to have the capability to take this email, and I want people to know that I did update this and I did reply back to Matt, is I can actually track this message within Tribal Platforms Enrollment. So I might not be emailing my tribal member directly. I'm probably emailing someone else within the organization, like I am emailing Matt here. I can track this message regarding Joshua Reed. So while Matt's receiving the email, I want this to show up on Josh's record. So once I've got that tracked, I can then send it. And now if I go back to Joshua's record and to my activities, what will eventually happen is that email that I sent will be listed here amongst the activities. Takes a little while for that tracking process to happen, maybe up to 5 minutes. But it's a great way for you to save time instead of having to copy and paste and create a note every time. You can actually track that capability right within an application that you're already familiar with working in Microsoft Outlook. Here I'm using the Outlook web client. You can do this on the Outlook client. If you have Outlook on your mobile device, you'll have the capability to utilize that functionality there as well. All right. So with that, as we're going back and forth and emailing, one of the things that we might be asked to do as well is run some reports about our tribal members. So let's take a look at some of that functionality that we have available to us. Now, one of the examples of reports I wanted to talk about is we're back here looking at Julia Myers, one of our other tribal members, Josh's spouse. And we have some reports that are available for you to print and view right within the system. For example, looking at Julia's record, we have the capability to look at an ancestor tree. If I want to look at a 3-generation tree, look at some of the details, I have the capability to run some of these reports so I can see kind of that family tree and be able to print and share this with that member if necessary. So we have reports that are built in for this from an ancestor and a descendant tree perspective. But one of the common questions that we get is, I need to take this member information that we have in the system, and I need to do mailing labels or address labels. So many times you have to take that information, put it into Excel, do a mail merge, and print your labels that way. Well, we actually have that report built into Tribal Platforms Enrollment. For example, if I wanted to take a look at my list of contacts, I've got my members of the tribe living. I have the capability to click on this Run Report icon. And this will allow me to generate different types of mailing label reports. So I can do a simple mailing label report. This will actually generate in a window. This report is built in and included with Tribal Platforms Enrollment. So I can print this out on my appropriate address labels as necessary. I've got a couple of different pages. If I have lots of members, I'll have multiple pages of labels here for me to print off that address information. And you can see it's giving me a label for each person that I have within this view. I can also choose to run a report for unique addresses. So it might be a little bit less. Perhaps you want to email them. You don't want to email the same information multiple times to the same address. So you can see we've got our labels here to say to the tribal members at, and you can see the address. If you want to change that greeting line and update your report, you can definitely do that as well. Many times you want to send it just to the unique households. You'll have the capability to generate that mailing label report. Do the same thing. Change your greeting line as necessary. We just simply provide a suggestion for you as well. And these reports are going to be available when you're looking at your list of members and be able to run that on the appropriate records that are available for you. So that's one of the ways that you can help facilitate the sharing of information without having to do a lot of extra steps just to get mailing labels. Now, one of the other topics I wanted to cover today is why would we want to use Tribal Platforms Enrollment? Obviously, just not from a membership perspective, but why we might want to use this within other departments in our organization. We have a lot of helpful information here about our contacts, their addresses. For example, looking at Joshua, we could see that he had his updated mailing address. He had a seasonal address as well. He's got his phone number details that we want to look at or be able to contact him as well. So there's a lot of information here. But there's a lot of information that we don't want people to see. Like we talked about these secure fields, like our social security number, the last 4 digits of our social security number, or looking at his member profile information. You know, seeing his ancestry and his parents and that type of information, this member profile. I talked a little bit earlier about the security within Tribal Platforms Enrollment. Your member base can be used not just for enrollment, but for other departments within your organization. Perhaps you want to use it from an education perspective, or housing, or family services, or social services, or tribal court. This can be your center for all of the different applications or departments that need this data. You can still control this, and you can still control the secure information, but you can safely share this with other people within the organization. Now, I talked about these key icons and that they're going to be secure for us. So I can see that I can view the details of this record, view the details of their tribal blood quantum fraction as well as their total blood quantum. And it can also see their social security information. Well, what if I was to share this with someone else in the organization? I'm currently logged in as another of our users. Actually, this is Matt, who we've been exchanging emails with today. And if he was looking at a contact like Joshua, which he has open here, and just to show you, I can go to really any contact. For example, I can look at Julia. And when he's looking at these member records, he's seeing the details I want him to see. He can view the household information. He can see the address details. He can see the age, the ethnicity. He can see all sorts of details. He can't actually see the member profile where he can try click into that record to view the contents of that, to be able to see the blood quantum, fraction, or decimal, or to be able to see any type of parent information. You'll also notice that for social security number, for the number itself, for the last four, for vendor number, these fields that have keys on them, I can control what a person can see. Can they even look at the contents of that field? Tribal Platforms Enrollment will control that capability for you. If they can see it, can they change it? We don't want everybody changing that number because of concerns of data integrity. So we can actually lock that field where people can see it, but they simply can't update it. So this gives our capability for other people in our organization to benefit from this data, but yet still control what they can do and what they can't do. In this example, maybe I just want him to be able to look at the tribal member record, but I don't want him to be able to make changes. We have a very granular security model within Tribal Platforms Enrollment that will allow us to do that. So as you can see with Tribal Platforms Enrollment, we're going to have a lot of capability for us to store a lot of important details about our member records, be able to perform a lot of the common actions that we have, be able to create our own queries, our own reports, do our address changes and ensure that our households are updated as well, be able to track our activities, our interactions with our members, and build that 360-degree view. And more importantly, be able to share that information with securely knowing that people are only viewing information that is essential to their job and not potentially oversharing or compromising any of our data. So at this time, I do want to pause to see if there are any questions or any comments, or if there's anything that you're interested in seeing that we've not yet displayed for you today.
Sarah, I haven't seen any questions come in.
Okay.
But let me see, and there's no hands. No hands up.
All right. I know it might be after lunch for some people, so it might be a tough time, but
indeed.
Yeah. Lynn, is there anything else that you'd want us to touch on or cover that we hadn't touched today?
That's great. I do hear all so often is addresses and the management of addresses and streamlining that process is always really one of the biggest issues that I hear. So that's really great to have that automatically update on the household, and awesome. Good, Sarah. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, I mean, I'm happy to show people the reporting capability more if they were interested in that, but I definitely want to be respectful of their time and what they're interested in looking at as well.
Certainly. Then let me go ahead, and if you want to pull up that PowerPoint, my PowerPoint there again. Sarah talks about reporting, and we wanted to share with you that we do have a couple more sessions where we will do a deeper dive in reporting. Next Wednesday, August 15th, we're going to be going into a deeper look also as the integration with Outlook and Excel and that live link and activity that can be happening between Excel and Tribal Platforms. So join us for that. And we'll also be doing a deeper dive in reporting, as I mentioned. Then on August 29th, we're going to take a look at some of the other functionality we have in extending Tribal Platforms. So it can be used for the education department or some social services. So we'll get a sneak peek at some of that functionality that we have to lay the foundation that Tribal Platforms Enrollment is the platform in and of itself, but it can certainly be extended. So each one of these sessions will be about 30 minutes, and we'll do look at some more functionality. If you guys need anything in the meantime or have some questions, maybe what you saw today kind of triggered some thought processes about the way you do things and the potential of doing those things differently with this newer technology, definitely email me. We'll definitely step you through that process. If you want a more customized demo for your team or anybody else in your tribal environment, we can certainly do that as well. But definitely would love to see you join us for the next two. It gives you a good comprehensive view as the power of tribal platforms enrollment and how it can best serve not only enrollment but the tribe as a whole. So with that, I think we are done today. Certainly reach out to us if you need anything in the meantime, and look to see your registration for the upcoming webcasts. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.